So you feel like a fraud in your faith, like an imposter, like a liar. That's all right. We've all been there. Today I want to share a tool with you that I'm calling the Fraud Quad, and I think it could be really helpful for you. So let's jump right in. Like and subscribe, please and thank you. All right, let me pull this up. Okay, so what we have here is a quadrant, and you can see running across one side we have things we are doing and things we are not doing, and then running across the top we have things we're telling people we're doing and things we are not telling people that we're doing. Obviously, the combinations that these four quadrants make are going to each yield different results. So why don't we just start right here in the bottom right corner. This is where we are not doing something and we are not telling people that we're doing it. And I'm going to call this one honesty. And so once again, these are things that we're not doing, but we're also not telling people that we're doing them. And I think this is actually a very underrated quadrant to live in sometimes. Initially, I think it kind of feels like, oh, I don't want to live here. I don't want to not be doing something. I don't want to it feels like it's kind of a nothing quadrant. But I think we're going to see it actually plays a pretty important role for us. So what does this one look like? Well, it's called honesty for a reason. In this one, we say things like, you know what? I am not intentionally memorizing scripture. I am not very consistent with my quiet time in the morning. I am not reading the Bible as much as I mean to. I don't have accountability in my life. And I think this quadrant is avoided a lot of the time because it requires vulnerability to live here. It requires us to kind of go first. It requires us to be very honest in order to actually live here. Because there are a lot of things we've been told we should do, and most of them are, in fact, good things. And the chances are you're surrounded by people who are saying they are doing all of these things. And the really scary part about this quadrant is standing alone, being the first one to say, you know what, I'm not doing that. But vulnerability is what leads to the best conversations, especially in like a small group Bible study, Sunday school kind of situation. In fact, I recently shared with a group of friends that I was with, and I knew what I was saying. I was going to be the only one who felt this way, and it was frightening to bring it up. But we ended up having a really great conversation because I was willing to say, you know what, I think this, and I know that you guys don't, but can we talk about it? It also created an opportunity for some people to say, yeah, you know what, me too. And it went really well. We had a great conversation, and some people were able to be honest because I went first. And it was scary and it's frightening and we don't like vulnerability. But that's kind of one of the strengths of this quadrant is that vulnerability, is that honesty and the conversations that it can lead to. And just really quickly, like this quadrant obviously represents an opportunity for growth. There are some things we're not doing that we might want to start doing. There are also some things that just belong here because we're not doing them and they're optional. Things like I do not meditate, I do not journal, I do not go for prayer walks, whatever it might be. There are things that we're not doing and we're not going to say that we're doing, and that's perfectly okay. And those things do belong in this quadrant. So sure, there's a lot of potential for growth in this quadrant, but it's also a perfectly fine place to be for a lot of things in our faith. Okay, let's come back to our quadrant, and I want to go straight up from there. I want to go into this quadrant, the not telling people and not doing quadrant. And this quadrant I'm going to call discipline. I recently watched a interview with Sam Sulek. If you don't know who that is, he's a bodybuilder, and he was talking about the preparation for one of the shows he was doing. And for like a month or two beforehand, he said he did 5 full 24-hour days of cardio. 5 full 24-hour days of cardio in like a month or 3, something like that. And he said none of that went on Instagram. None of that was flashy or showy. It was just behind the scenes, grinding, working, just putting in the reps. And that's what this quadrant represents for us. It's the behind the scenes work. It's the things we do when nobody is looking. And honestly, I think this is our most important quadrant to live in. This is probably the most overlooked quadrant because it's not flashy, it's not impressive, it doesn't go on TikTok. But what's amazing about this quadrant is our motivation is never called into question. We don't have to wonder why we're doing it. If we're just doing something alone and we're doing it to better our faith, if we're doing it to grow, if we're doing it to improve our relationship with Jesus, and we're not even telling anyone about it, then we don't have to question why we're doing it. And so this quadrant looks like having that quiet time in the morning. This quadrant looks like actually praying those prayers that we tell people we're going to and not just saying, yeah, I'll pray for you, actually doing it. This quadrant is that walk that we take just for our mental health. This is the study. This is the book that we're reading. This is the research that we're doing. This is the difficult questions that we're asking. This is putting in the reps behind the scenes. This is going to the gym on a Tuesday. to keep the fitness metaphor going. Everything we do is built on this quadrant. If we want to have another section where we are telling people about the things that we're doing, it starts here. This is the foundation. This is where our faith is built. This is where our faith grows. Who we are when no one is looking is who we are. And this quadrant is where we get to decide who we're going to be. This is where we're going to spend the most time because this is where everything else is built. So if we jump back to our quadrant, we have honesty, we have discipline, and now we're going to come down here. This is a quadrant where we are not doing something, but we are telling people that we're doing something. And as you may have guessed, this one is called fraud. The truth is, we hate this quadrant. We hate living here. We hate when other people live here. We hate lying to people. We hate when other people lie to us. We don't like when we're deceiving. We don't like how we feel when we live here. We don't like how other people treat us when they live here. We hate this quadrant. We want to minimize it. We want to get away from it. And we don't like it in any way. No one ever picks this quadrant. And yet, somehow we end up here. There's a draw to this quadrant that's hard to explain. And this looks exactly like what it sounds like. It looks like saying something, telling people we're doing something that we are not doing. So this is, oh yeah, I have great accountability in my life. Never look at porn. Oh no, my faith is rock solid. I never have a doubt. We make a ton of charitable donations. I pray every single day. I never miss a quiet time. I never miss my time with God in the morning. We communicate perfectly. We never fight ever. There's an undeniable draw to this quadrant. And I think it's actually because it takes the difficult part of our previous two quadrants and gets rid of them. In honesty, the honesty quadrant requires vulnerability. This quadrant gets rid of the vulnerability. The discipline quadrant requires a lot of work, and this quadrant gets rid of the work. And that's how we end up in this fraudulent quadrant, which is hard to say. So it makes sense that sometimes we end up in this corner of the fraud quad, because if we take out the work of discipline and the vulnerability of honesty, that's there's a draw there. I think because we still get to have the accolades. You know, we can still have the leadership position. We can still be a mentor. We can still be a leader in our church. We can still teach that class, whatever it is. People can still look up to us. But as the man said, the whole thing's built on sand. It's a lie. It's not true. It's fraudulent. And like I said, from time to time, we end up here. And the key to getting out of this quadrant is to slide back. There's a real temptation sometimes to think, oh, well, if I'm saying I'm doing something that I'm not doing, I just need to start doing that thing and then everything will be fine. I won't be a fraud anymore. But that's not how it works. What we need to do when we're feeling like a fraud is we need to slide back to that other side of the quadrant. We need to either slide all the way back to honesty and just stop saying we're doing it. If we're not doing it, we can just stop telling people that we're doing it. And that's fine. Sometimes that's a great place to start. Chances are we need to slide back into discipline. We need to start doing it, and we need to stop saying that we're doing it. We need to actually do both. Either way, we don't want to stay in this quadrant. It's not a good place. We don't like how we feel. We have a hard time respecting ourselves. This quadrant makes us feel it makes our relationship with Jesus a little bit strained, because that starts to feel fraudulent. And what else is kind of a lie in my life? And we don't want to live here. We slide back into discipline. We slide back into honesty, and we work our way from there. And one more time, let's jump back to our quadrant. We have our honesty quadrant, our discipline quadrant, our fraudulent quadrant, and then, of course, this quadrant up here where we are doing something and we're telling people that we're doing it. We're simply going to call this one integrity, where we are telling people that we're doing something and we're doing it. This quadrant is, of course, not terribly complicated. It's easy to understand, but I think it is also misunderstood. I think it's a bit tempting to say, oh, this is where we're supposed to live. This is where most of our faith is supposed to exist. This is where we're supposed to eventually get. But again, I want to reemphasize, most of our faith, most of our life of faith, most of our time with God exists in that discipline quadrant. It exists working quietly, silently, alone, maybe with just a few small people. Most of our faith is not an Instagram post. Most of our faith is not a YouTube video. But with that, there are parts of our faith that we want to talk about. And there are circles of people that we want to talk about more openly with. And that is an important component of our faith, is telling people the things that we're doing, the things that are working for us, and the things that we're actually doing. But there's a kind of a struggle sometimes with this quadrant in saying, I think sometimes it feels like we have to have things perfected. Like, I'll give you an example. I wrote a book about joy. And for a long time, you might be able to see it. There it is, right? There it is. right there behind me. For me, I felt kind of fraudulent while I was writing this book about joy, especially because I kept thinking, you know what, I'm not always a happy person. I haven't mastered this at all. I'm not a particularly joyful person at all. I wrote the book because I needed more joy. How can I really write a book about joy if I haven't mastered this? And so to solve that problem, all I had to do is write an honest book. So I didn't write a book where I said, oh, I'm always happy and things always work out and I never have a bad day anymore and I've mastered this and this is perfect and I have just the joy down in my heart in every circumstance. I never question it. I'm rejoicing always. I didn't write that book. That book isn't true. That would be fraudulent. That would make me a fraud. I would feel like an imposter, like a liar. Instead, I wrote a book that was very honest. Look, joy is available to us. Here are the things that worked for me. This helped me a lot. I'm doing a lot better, but I have not perfected this by any means. And because I wrote that book, now I feel honest about it. I can say I wrote it with integrity. And so it's not a matter, this quadrant is not called perfection, it's called integrity. So it's not a matter of becoming perfect before we can talk about anything. It's a matter of, if we're going to say we're doing it, we just need to be doing it. And it's not much more complicated than that. So here it is one more time. The fraud quad. We have our honesty quadrant, our discipline quadrant, our fraudulent quadrant, and our integrity quadrant. And guys, listen, the truth is we all live in all of them from time to time. There are parts of our faith that belong in the honesty quadrant. I'm not doing it, and I'm not saying that I'm doing it. That's okay. There are parts of our faith that belong in the discipline quadrant. In fact, this is our biggest area. This is where we're doing the work, putting in those reps behind the scenes, actually growing and just not worrying about anybody, going full monk mode and not telling people about it. We have this quadrant where we're telling people that we're doing it, but we're not actually doing it. And you know what? The truth is we all fall into this from time to time, especially if I'm like planning to start something soon, that every once in a while this one sneaks up. It's tempting because it takes the difficult part of these quadrants and just gets rid of them, and it's tempting, but we don't want to live there. And then finally, of course, we have this integrity quadrant where we're telling people that we're doing things because we actually are doing them and we want people to benefit from it. We want people to grow from it. So guys, there it is. I hope you find the fraud quad beneficial, this fraudulent quadrant. We'll workshop that. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment if you would, please and thank you. And I'll talk to you soon.